Hello everybody, my name is Brian Nunez. I am the Director of Marketing for the TLR brand, and next to me is Frank Root, the Category Manager for all things performance. Now today we have a really exciting announcement, especially for the race team. Finally, the brand new 22X buggy, and also, you want to show them?
I guess.
The truck. The 22XT, which we're going to put away for now, but we do want to let you guys know that the truck is on the way. It won't be available at the time of the announcement of the buggy. You guys have to be a little bit more patient with us, but we want to let you know that it is coming. So for those of you that want to run buggy and truck, we got you covered. So now, Frank, first and foremost, you and I have been here with the company for over 13 years. I know you were here in the inception of the original 22, which kind of turned the whole electric industry upside down, in my opinion, right? It got me excited about indoor racing, and I was an outdoor stadium truck guy. But one of the things that I will never forget is a video of you being one of the first guys running mid-motor, doing testing for mid-motor. Knowing what you knew back then, talk to me a little bit about that, and now everything's mid-motor.
Yeah, I mean, what we found is just cars are better and carry more corner speed and are easier to drive and manage the weight when the weight's more centralized in the car. When you get the motor in front of the rear diff, when you get the battery to the middle of the car, cars are calmer, they're more stable, they're easier to drive, and just they produce faster lap times, just straight up. And we kind of found that pretty early once we started going mid-motors. The feel wasn't always there, but the lap times were right from the go. And we spent a lot of time over the last decade plus really making the cars feel like the way that we'd like them to feel without losing that lap time. And that's kind of led us into our next generation of buggy here, the 22X.
So, great point, right? I think mid-motor has always been faster. Centralized weight makes the car pivot easier. But again, not every guy can pick it up and drive it. But if you were great, you could. Like you said, the lap times were there, the consistency wasn't. Going from the original 22 to the 22X, what do you think got the car to be more drivable, more consistent? Is it just front end geometry? How would you package all that?
I mean, it does have a lot to do with the front end geometry and the steering feel. The ability to get lap time and steering from the front end of the car, but without making it too hard to manage and too aggressive feeling. We spent quite a bit of time in the rear end of the car, really getting the weight balance over the rear correct, having the right kind of roll characteristics so that the car rolls very linearly. It doesn't get kind of aggressive with how it rolls, and really optimizing the weight layout in the car, getting the motor a little further forward, getting the battery to lay across the chassis, and really just giving that great balance of steering and support in the rear to maximize those lap times and comfort.
When you said battery, I thought about the original 22, the Speedo sitting on top of the water tower. We've come such a long way. Now, looking ahead, I mean, I think this is a kind of a new dawn for TLR and the 22X and where we want to head. Where do you see, in general, not just the vehicle, the industry, tracks? They've changed a lot in the last 13 years, 10 years. Where do you envision it happening in 5 and 10 years?
I mean, I think one thing that's really evident, right, is we've increased the number of carpet tracks a lot in the US. Obviously in Europe, they've always been prevalent. And the indoor tracks that we have remaining, a lot of them are glued surfaces now or really high bite clay. So the grip levels have continued to increase. We see kind of less of the outdoor loose track type tracks where you're really trying to just generate rear grip. So that steering balance, that steering feel, the ability to run quick lap times, to have a car that's easy to drive and comfortable to drive on really high grip surfaces that can make the front end feel aggressive was really the goal of the 22X. And I think tracks are going to continue to evolve that way. So having a car that's very, very capable and really fast on carpet and easy to drive there. And then on those high grip slick type tracks, right, to have that really good, quick corner speed without having the aggressive front end feel. I mean, that's where we've been going. That's what we developed these cars for. And the industry's kind of shown us that that's the way the tracks have been moving and are going to probably continue to move that direction.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think back to one of the Reedy races, I think one of the last ones at OCRC, where we were just like, man, these tracks are now literally on road with jumps, right? You can see the rubber in the corners. You can hear the tires screeching as they come in. So I think for me, it's interesting to see if it's going to continue that direction. Whereas a marketing guy, I always think there's cycles to this. I wonder if there's an opportunity for things to go full circle and go back to the Lomi style tracks that we got into, you know, in the 80s. Cleaning is going to be a pain in the butt like it was back then. But yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see where it goes.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where 8 scale's been going, right? 8 scale kind of, if you're going outdoors and you want to run in the mud, you know, that kind of fits that need. They're all 4-wheel drive. They're bigger so they can handle the bumps and the tracks, etc. And the 10 scale stuff seems to be obviously the ideal for carpet and indoor clay stuff. So that seems to be kind of how things are heading. But, you know, the industry is going to tell us what's important to them and where they want to race and how they want to race. And it's up to us to kind of see how things are going and make vehicles that can be competitive and fun to drive in those environments. And I think we've done that well with the 22X.
That's a great way of putting it. Ultimately, it's up to you guys, the customer, to decide where do you want the industry to go. So we're just here kind of as stewards and provide the product, but you guys take it to the track and dictate how to use it, where to use it. So that's awesome, Frank. Now, I want to segue a little bit into the development time. You've done, I don't even want to think about how many projects you've brought to market, from concept literally to putting on the store shelf. Looking back into what was the development on this? A little bit over 2 years, 2 years exactly? What do you think?
A little longer for me. We had a lot of testing and development that was done like 2020 and 2021. We spent a lot of time testing on carpet, Gil and myself, and we weren't finding the improvements that we were looking for. We're finding speed, but not comfort, or comfort and not speed. And it kind of caused us to go back to the drawing board and really reevaluate some things. And we were able to kind of, you know, find those things in later testing. And that's kind of how the 22X came around.
Yeah, but we started with the 22, 2.0, 3.0, 4.0, 5.0. The reason we're calling this X is because it's literally a fresh start, right? If you were to put a percentage on it, how many parts do you think this shares with the 22 5.0?
Less than 10%. I mean, it's a couple of drivetrain parts, shock internals, and a lot of nuts and bolts and bearings. But other than that, it's pretty much all new.
Ground up, awesome. Yeah. And to your point, that's just because the 5.0, the way that the industry went with these super high bite, high traction tracks, there's no way we can get the 5.0 to be what this is. So we had to start from scratch to a certain degree, right?
Yeah, we knew we wanted to take some big steps in all areas of the car. The front end, the rear end, the way that the drivetrain works in the back of the car, the steering geometry. And once you start kind of wanting to make changes in all those areas, it really hampers you to try and work around existing parts and geometry. So we kind of went and, all right, we got a clean chalkboard. We're gonna clean scratch piece of paper. We're gonna start from where we want to, get all the geometry where we want it to go, get the speed out of the car. How do we want it to be to work on, to look, to feel? And obviously we have that great TLR, value in terms of what you get out of the box for the price that you pay, really quality metal parts, long time drivetrain life, things like that. So it was just a matter of, taking all of what we learned through, the 22 original 1.0 all the way through the 5.0, taking it to another level, and then giving ourselves kind of no bumpers on the lane, right? To decide what we wanted to design. And that's how we end up with the 22X.
So great way of putting it, right? When you start with when you make the decision as a company to invest in a brand new platform, the guardrails kind of go away. From my understanding, when you go from a 1.0 to a 2.0, that's a lot of PD work, right? And kind of just the refinements, if you will. But with this, it seems to me like we really started with engineering, right? And setting out that scope document. What do you think are some of the key things that the engineering team kind of did throughout the process? Or what do you think we changed from the original 22 to this that got us to where we're at today?
Well, I think the really important first step for us is what we call race engineering or track engineering. And that's where Gil, myself, Ryan Dunford, we go out to the track, we figure out what we want the geometry to be. And for us, we had a pretty good idea after testing. And then becomes the challenging part is sometimes the geometry or the geometry options, the tunability that we want in the car isn't always packageable. And by packageable, I mean, can we design the parts, have them all fit, have them all clear, have them be durable enough and made with standard kind of manufacturing processes, whether it's machining or molding. We had a big challenge there, and it took a lot of work from Aaron Sue, who was our lead engineer, and Mike Mellon, to design the 22X. We have two completely different front ends that we wanted to package on this vehicle and there was a lot of challenges there to get the steering geometry to correct, to get the durability that we're looking for and the adjustment that we needed kind of all out of this package. And that's where, Aaron and Mike really stepped up and helped us figure it out. Same thing in the rear end. We had some goals there for moving CG forward and lower removable, easy access diff, other things in the rear and the way the sway bar mounts, etc. And a lot of challenges there from an engineering standpoint. And okay, we know where we wanted the points, and we passed that off to Aaron and Mike. They had to figure out how to do it, and they did a great job of that.
Awesome. So Aaron is somebody we're going to bring into this video here shortly, so stick around for that. But now that you touched on the engineering side, talk to me on primarily what your real focus here is: development, right? Keeping this thing on schedule. Dunford had a lot to do with that. What are kind of some of the challenges that you guys faced during the development of this project?
Yeah, so for this TLR vehicle, the biggest challenge that we faced, quite frankly, is we decided to have it manufactured at a different factory. We feel like there's tremendous upside to being at that factory. It gives us a lot more ability to be flexible with bringing parts in on a quicker schedule. And really, I think the fit, finish, and quality of this kit, it goes up even another step from what we've seen before from the TLR 10 scale race kits. So for us, it's just getting that new vendor up to speed. So even the existing parts on this are kind of new from this vendor. So it takes a long time to go through that manufacturing design process and then the sampling process, getting that vendor up to speed. And even though there was a little bit of extra work there, I think it's more than worth it when the car hits the shelf. And I think that anybody that builds one will see that improvement that we're seeing as well.
That is, you hit on something big there. When you start with a blank slate, you can literally start with a blank slate. And we learned a lot in our previous manufacturer and the things that we developed with them, bringing that to a newer, modern approach to manufacturing, again, takes this car to a whole nother level. Speaking of a blank slate, let's bring Aaron in, who designed the 22X from the ground up. All right, so I'm here with Aaron Su, not only the lead engineer and designer of the new 22X, also your home track is Losi Raceway, right? You're a Colorado native.
Yeah.
So you've been here with the team for how many years now?
For 5 years.
5 years, awesome. So look at that, 5 years later, you signed your first two-wheel buggy, so congrats. So Aaron, what I really want to talk to you about is this car in front of me, which is kind of a rapid prototype 3D printed version of the car, right? What are kind of some of the reasons from an engineering and PD perspective that we do this?
Yeah, so it took 8 months in CAD to design this car. And just after all that time, just looking at it on screen, it was just so valuable to just be able to hold it and look at it and all the parts, see what the weakness is or where it's a little too thick and stuff like that. And it just really gave us a good feel of the assembly of the car and different things that needed to be changed.
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of value into actually putting screws into it, right? And seeing how things go together, where it might be a little more difficult to see that in screen all blown up. And I think everything looks beautiful in screen, right? And so you print it out like, oh wait, complete it and see this. Now, the other thing that I want to mention is, I've been here since the original release of the 22, right? Shortly thereafter. So the original two-wheel was something that I raced on track. And it's amazing to me, who's kind of been out of racing, honestly, for a little bit, how kind of more intricate, but yet easy to work on these cars are. And I think the big thing that stands out to me is the rear transmission, which is why we brought these out, right? So can you walk us through the original scope of the rear gearbox and your iterations and designs and how you got to where you were today?
Yeah, so the original scope of the rear gearbox was to have an easy access diff. Wanted to make sure that could come out as easy as possible for maintenance. To have the C and D pivot blocks attached to the gearbox so that can come up off the chassis. And then these additional points here for additional stiffness in the back of the chassis as well, which led us to this first iteration here, where the shock tower is combined to this back cap. And we just found that was a more clunky design and did not allow us to distribute the weight of the gearbox itself very well. And that's what led us to this next design.
Second one. So I'm looking at the second one. It's like the tower's in the front, right?
Yeah, so the tower in this design has now moved to the front of the shocks. The shocks now mount to the back side of the tower. And that helped us redistribute the weight a lot more.
Gotcha. Now, that also means that you don't need to technically remove your rear tower in order to get rid of the diff, right? Yes. Which I know has always been kind of a clunky kind of way of getting the diff out. Any other changes in this design that you worked on?
Yeah, so there's changes to the rear camber block on this one as well. There was these mounting holes for the back cap, and it was just getting thin and weak in these areas, so we wanted to address that.
So then I'm assuming round 3, you refined the actual camber block. It looks like a much more refined design, kind of lighter weight.
Yeah, by this point we had ended up at the production rear camber block there, We had refined the design, put some cutouts in, and changed the orientation of the rear wing mount, just because it works better with the shock tower being further forward. We no longer have those mounting points. There's just way more leverage if we were to mount on the shock tower. So we mounted the wing mount to the gearbox itself. And then final version here, even more refined, different shock tower mounting here for more durability in the wing mount portions as well.
Gotcha. So it looks like the actual mounting points of the wing mount are a little bit closer together, a little bit less leverage to your point, right, on that rear wing as you tumble and take any impacts on the rear side of this car. So that's the gearbox. Now, what else do you think took a lot of work? Where else did you spend a bulk of those 8 months kind of looking at the screen and banging your head against the screen trying to figure things out?
Yeah, it was on the front end, the steering geometry took weeks and weeks to sort out. Just working with the PD team and the racing team, trying to find the consensus best steering geometry that works at the most amount of tracks. So it took us a long time to find that. And then from there, how to get parts to actually go through that geometry and make that steering feel that we needed. So that took a long time. We tried many different bell crank variations, different drag lengths or drag link variations, and ball stud positioning. And we finally ended up at this design, which is the ball studs mounted directly to the bell cranks. And that just gave us the right throw to get the optimized steering geometry we're looking for.
Gotcha. Now, one other thing that stands out to me, again, is just how much more tunability there is in the front end of this car, right? I mean, I'm looking at camber blocks that are removable, not just in the front, but on the actual caster block side. I'm looking at different, steering options for your spindles, like you mentioned, the bell cranks. What does it take to get all that to always work in unison? And also, again, I think what racers want is tunability, right? They want to be able to literally mold the car to their driving style, let alone to the track. What does this whole front end kind of entail when it comes to the options?
Yeah, there's just so much tunability. There's a front kick plate that goes under the front pivot there that changes the angle of kick by plus or minus 2.5 degrees. And then we also now have caster inserts in the caster block out on the spindle side here that have a bunch of angle options in there too. So just to go through and check everything, all the different permutations of all the different angles and stuff just took a chunk of time.
Now, talk to me a little bit about how do you ensure that the part is thick enough? Because I think one thing that we always have to take into consideration is it even moldable, right? Is the part thick enough in the right places just so that the material itself can be manufacturable, can it flow through there? How do you find the balance between, is this too heavy, too clunky? How do you find that balance between kind of efficiency and durability, if you will?
Yeah, so that's one of our actually biggest advantages in 3D printing is everything on screen looks thick, everything looks strong, and you get these parts actually printed out, and it's oh wait, that area is way too thin, or oh, that area is way too thick, that's gonna have huge molding issues and stuff. 3D printing, we use a lot of expertise from Mike and Gil, previous designs and stuff, and then we'll run simulations on things that we're still unsure of from there. And if we can't get accurate results from that, then we'll go to sampling and testing, just to make sure everything is production ready.
Awesome. So I guess we're not just fully leaning on one experience, 3D printing and simulations, right, in CAD. At the end of the day, you still have to put it on the track. You still have to test it. You're likely going to break it, and you still come back and refine, which is part of the reason why developing a brand new race car takes so long, right? It's just all these steps and making sure everything's perfect for the end customer. So, Aaron, really all that I have to say is, 1, congratulations on your first kind of complete design. 2, thank you for everything you've done and continue to do for the TLR brand and all the other brands as well. But yeah, man, thank you so much for your time, and we'll see you in the next one.
Thank you.
And speaking of the actual development of the vehicle, let's bring Ryan Dunford in, who can actually walk through the entire testing process, development process, and getting this product to market. Alrighty, so now I'm here with Ryan Dunford, literally the head developer behind the brand new 22X. Dunford, we have a lot to cover here, and especially you're the man for the job when it comes to this, because I know you've been here for going on, what, over 15 years? Your 15th anniversary is just a few weeks ago, right?
A couple weeks past.
Awesome. Well, congratulations on that.
Thanks.
Now, Dunford, one of the things that Frank mentioned, which is a critical point here, is kind of the manufacturing side of what your job is. It's not just a matter of developing, testing product, it's also working with the manufacturer to make sure the quality, the fit is all there. Now, talk to me a little bit about what that all entails.
Well, for us, for this project, this was the first project we took to a completely new vendor that we hadn't necessarily worked with in the past as far as a full kit. We've actually worked with them a bunch on, like, they made our TLR pinion gears for years. They made a number of option parts for us for years, but we've just never approached them about a full kit. They really want to nail it. They've gone through a lot of effort on a lot of the parts. That is nice to see in a new vendor like this, and it's just been really nice working with them, to be honest. I mean, there's parts on this car that are T12s, just to make sure that they're right for release. So.
Perfect. And for those, T12 means it's gone through 12 iterations in order to get it to production. Now, one of the things with its new manufacturer, again, taking things to new manufacturers and taking a more modern approach also helps a lot with, kind of a clean slate is one of the things that Frank and I were saying, right? One of the things that a lot of people don't take into consideration is the materials that goes into these cars. It's not just one material of composite used on the whole thing, some carbon, some aluminum, and some steel. Like we have, one of our features and benefits of this is fiberglass infused parts, right? Talk to me about what that does and where do we use it and why?
Man, if I really thought about all the different composites on this car, we probably got at least 7 to 10 different composites, and the layman's term from composites is the plastic parts, right? The molded, injection molded parts. But like, for instance, the side guards, right? Which would be a part, just common side guard on a car. We release 3 different iterations of that all have different flex characteristics because of the amount of fiberglass fibers in the part. In the past, we've tried a lot of different materials. We've settled on 3 in this instance that gave us the different stiffness options we were looking for. And even between these 2 kits, they actually come with different ones. The DC comes with soft, the AC comes with standard, and then there's one that's even stiffer out of our Stiffazel material. And it's the amount of fiberglass that's woven into the composite. And it just changes, whether the chassis is flexing this way, whether it's torsionally flexing, things like that.
That's huge. I mean, it's incredible to think that even strapped to an aluminum chassis, this side guard or this side plate makes such a big difference in the handling characteristics. I think that's one of the things that, again, a lot of people don't take into consideration, especially people outside of the industry is what I'm talking about, right? They see a really expensive RC car, but the amount of development and testing, I mean, Gil Losi said this one time to me where he's like, they worked with IndyCar when Pops used to sponsor IndyCar. And the IndyCar team was so impressed at all the engineering development that went into this. It's ridiculous. We would never go to this level. It's so crazy. So I think we do things above and beyond, especially at TLR. So we obviously have 2 different versions, 2 different boxes here, right? 2 different SKUs, if you will. Can you walk me through really quickly, why didn't we just put an AC, DC, 1 SKU in 1 box?
Oh, goodness. Well, let's see. It would be, there's so many different parts in the cars, different chassis, different composites, different pistons, different springs, different diffs, sway bars, no sway bars, different front corner parts for us. Like, the list just goes on and on and on. I mean, so it would end up being a $700. Yeah.
We said the same amount, and that was not scripted at all, right? So part of the reason for split into an AC and DC is, again, trying to make it as affordable as possible. For sure. But again, without limiting the end consumer, because I think one of the key benefits here is, although there is some AC, DC specific parts, there are instances where you're going to want to kind of cross-pollinate chat or platforms, right? What is an example that somebody can take, a front end or a front corner, as you like to call it, and put it on this, for example?
Well, I mean, traditionally, Astro carpet, tons of grip, dirt, clay, a lot less grip. What we've seen a lot out there nowadays is tracks like a local track, Coyote here, seals the surface with a glue. And so that dirt clay track ends up having a lot of grip. So you can use a lot of the parts that were designed for, I need more steering, I need lower roll centers, I need any of that, and incorporate into said other car, or bits and pieces from each car, as you will, to make the car work really well for you specifically.
Got it. So not just from a track condition, but you as a driver as well. Seems like you have, essentially you can kit bash, if you will, to make whatever vehicle is best for you, your track and your handling. Now, I want to talk a little bit about some of the intricacies before we get into the overall kind of new platform. What are some other elements within the new 22X that you have that tunability just from a material perspective? The waterfall, for example?
Yep. From a composite perspective, the waterfall comes in 2 different stiffnesses. Side guards we talked about was 3. Front and rear arms both come in 2 different stiffnesses. I mean, those are mostly the ones that come in different stiffnesses, because those are where we find that them being available in different stiffnesses offer the different tunability you're looking for.
Got it. Now, I know that a key part of the difference here is kind of mainly the front end geometry, right, between these 2 cars. And it's not that one is Astro carpet specific or dirt and clay specific, but I know you call these corners. What are the differences between the corners?
The primary difference, just outright between the 2 corners, is where the kingpin is located. It's kind of hard to see maybe on camera, but maybe if we could hold both these up here, you can kind of see. The easiest way to tell is how close this edge is to this. So how close basically your steering knuckle is to the carrier, and that's the offset. So the position between here and here is the same, but this pin position, which is the kingpin, is in a different position in regards to all that, right? And the further you go in here, that produces more sway in the front end and thus more scrub. And so what we've got is essentially a wide front end, is what we call it on the dirt clay car, and then a narrow front end, or it's a narrower kingpin, right, on the Astro carpet car.
Got it. So that's what we're labeling it. That's how we're describing it, as a wide front end and a narrow front end?
Yeah, and they're marked. All the parts are marked. They are specific, meaning there's a caster block, a spindle, and a steering arm that specifically, those 3 always go together. You don't cross those parts.
Got it.
But you can easily put like these parts on this car and vice versa, depending on what you're looking for as far as a feel.
Got it. Now, I'm assuming the width, especially if you start messing with your hexes, really what that does is affect kind of the scrub rate, right? And how the tires work together through their steering travel?
Yeah, basically, like if you think of where this kingpin is, you can take 2 tires and they're either going to rotate like this, or they start to swing around more as that kingpin's more offset.
Got it.
And that's what's called your scrub radius, or how much it's countering the tires back and forth in the car, and it really affects the weight to usually the alternate corner of the rear end of the car.
Awesome. Alrighty, so going through kind of those 2 key things, appreciate that not only understanding the composite, but the key differences is being the wide versus the narrow. Is there anything else that you think is primarily different between the AC and the DC kit? Anything in the rear end?
Well, as far as the front end, the only other difference is the tower that it comes with. This comes with a standard tower, and that's just the height.
Okay.
We make 3 different heights. We make a -2, a standard, and a +2. This one comes with a -2, so that the front end doesn't roll quite as much on carpet. And then the other big differences between the 2, the length of the chassis is different. They come with different electronics trays, different pistons, different springs, and then this comes with a ball differential, right? And this comes with a gear differential, which is a new gear differential, houses more oil. So for more consistency, it uses the internal gears from our 22X4, so that you have less parts in your box, which is always nice.
Awesome.
And then they do both sport a new the internal gear ratio is now 2.6 to 1.
Got it. So I'm looking at the etching here. It says standard on the chassis. This says +3. Those are the only 2 chassis that we're offering?
Those are the only 2 that will be available in the boxes. We are offering a -3 because we have found some instances where people like the shorter car for a couple of different reasons. Usually it just provides more overall grip.
Gotcha.
We find.
Awesome. Alrighty. So now that we talked about kind of the key differences between both, let's talk about the features and benefits that are shared amongst both of them. Again, I know we probably have a lot to cover since this is a ground up chassis, right, or a ground up design. So where do you prefer to start? Do you want to start from the center, the front end, the rear end? What's better for you?
Well, I mean, if we're talking about like just generally what the populace the population wants to see, they want to see the rear end.
Okay.
So I mean, between the rear end, between the two, they're very similar arms. As far as the composite used, same height tower, everything except for the springs and the pistons are the same on the shock. The gearbox, this whole rear clip is now a clip, which is nice. That's something new that we did. So you take out the 8 screws in the back here. So these 8 screws, this whole clip comes off, and you want stuff's not falling apart or anything like that, because the C&D blocks actually bolt to the transmission case.
I remember that on the original 22 was having that small little screw that you had back here, and so that's clean. Now, just one thing I want to be clear is the transmission case itself, the gearbox, exactly the same amongst both. Got it. So you can, again, for whatever instances, depending on what track, if you did want to run a gear diff instead of the ball diff, you can pull that out of your box and throw that in.
And you can do it very easily now. It's only what I like to call 5 screws. So you remove this screw here, all this pivots up, and then you got 2 screws here, 2 screws here, and the cap comes off, and the gear comes in and
right out. Awesome. Now, talk to me a little bit more about, this is something new, at least to me, is this kind of slipper setup and how you're adjusting it from the actual driver's side of the car versus the passenger side. What's kind of the design there?
Yeah, that's a departure for us. A lot of companies have actually tried it in the past, and it's something new. We took a look at it. And the primary reason we separated them out is to get the weight more even between the right and left. And it also makes it all kind of fit under the body a little easier. So it's a little sleeker design as far as look goes, a little bit more central weight bias. So just produces anything you can do these days to produce a half of a tenth or a tenth, people are going for.
So the days of a performance part being a lengthened gear cover, we're way beyond that, right?
Right?
We're getting much more intricate. Anything that for our current race team or our current customers, anything that they are going to be familiar with on this rear end from a driveline perspective?
Pretty much there's like 2 things. It's the rear hub.
Okay.
So we kept our rear hub. It's a hub that the design has proven very versatile. It's a good design. So we're like, well, we're just going to carry that over and we're going to continue to use it. It's got a lot of different height options. We also did carry over the axle design with the multiple mounting points for the pivot point. And thus we have a lot of different length bones. So we added a couple bones to our mix because usually the reality is the bone length is based on where you put the pin in the CV joint, and then where you have the hub and the diff height. And so by the time you get all that going, you need different length bones, just primarily so the bone stays in the outdrive.
Right.
So
got it. So kind of a necessity there.
Yep.
Awesome. So now that we covered the rear end, let's go through kind of the center. One, I see a fan mount. I see some tunability in where you place your battery. And this plate is also a kind of an electronics tray.
It is.
Right? Yep. Walk me through kind of the features and benefits of the center of the car.
Well, the center of the car, we did adjust the angles and everything so that we felt like we'd get a little bit more consistent movement in the chassis as far as grip levels go. We added a pivot ball here, for us is new, and just allows torsional twist to be a little bit more consistent. Yes, this is a fan mount. It's nice and easily accessible right from the top. 1 screw, fan in and out, in case you're taking your motor in and out. This we've seen in the past as far as our cradle goes with the elastomer mounts. But it is an updated one. That's why it's actually marked. It's one of the few parts that's marked 22X because the posts versus the screw holes are a little different.
Got it.
And then the other thing we did add on the chassis is we connected the front here and we ran an extra brace to the front. And the reason I bring that up is because that's more or less a flex tuning option.
Oh.
So we've done a lot of testing where you can run with or without this screw.
Got it.
And it just changes the flex in the front of the car and the way the car steers through a turn a lot of the times.
So no need to actually cut the plastic or anything. Literally just removing the 2 screws is going to change the way your front end flexes and handles.
And then, of course, you mentioned the different electronics tray mounts. This car has a little bit lighter one. This one's got a little bit heavier one, just basically for use with carpet. And then we actually make one in between, which is an aluminum one. So it's an in-between weight.
Awesome. Awesome. Now, let's keep moving forward here. What else do we think we need to touch on the front end and the way all that's packaged?
Well, I mean, we have new bell cranks here. That's completely new. That honestly was one of the primary reasons we wanted to make a new front end, was because the original front end for the 22 was never really designed for bell cranks. Strangely enough,
Remember?
somebody here actually designed the first bell cranks for that car versus having the sliding rack. And they got jammed in there. It wasn't necessarily purpose-built. So we got to finally adjust that and put some good solid length bell cranks in, so that the servos can be in that 100% range. 85, 110% range is usually what you're looking for out of a servo. It seems silly, but we have new ball cups. I guess that technically affects the rear too, but there's new balls and ball cups. These are a different size than anybody else has. It is a 5.8. It's an industry standard size ball. So instead of making specific, we went all the way up to a 5.8 ball. And the larger ball enables more articulation without bindage. So without popping off or anything like that. So those have been super, super positive. But it is something to note because that means people need new ball studs.
Yep, especially rod ends, right? That's like one of the number one parts you need.
Yep.
Great. Awesome. So now that we walk kind of through the kind of features and benefits of the entire platform, I'd like to go to the ProLine side, the electronic side, and kind of once you build this is only, half the battle. You still got to finish your build.
And outfit it.
So going through here, now talk to me a little bit about the ProLine body, the wing. Is the kit coming with wheels and tires? What's happening?
Yeah, so I'll talk about that a little bit. This body is the body that was designed for the car. It was designed by ProLine. This was actually the very first body that they designed in this new line. And then they were like, oh, well, we really like how the design turned out. Can we make it for, the 20? Then they kind of went backwards, strangely enough. We've had this body for a long time, but then they made the 5.0 one, and so on and so forth. But this is actually a ProLine design, and it's coming in the car. As far as wheels, tires, anything of that nature, none of that comes in the kit anymore. And one of the main reasons for that is, you can see in here, we got carpet versus clay. You could never guess what you would want to put in this thing. It's different front wheels because a carpet wheel is going to be narrower than a clay wheel. You're never going to get it right. But it does come with the lower front wing. And it does come with an upper front wing. These are both ProLine part numbers as well. These happen to be ProLine's part numbers. And then ProLine did actually make a new front wheel for carpet because we asked them to after all of our testing. So we have a new wheel for carpet. You can see it's a dish design now. So convex instead of concave. And then it's a little bit wider. So they had their original carpet wheel was a little narrower, so it'd make the tire a little bit more radiused. And wider tends to produce a flatter tire, which on carpet actually tends to be a more consistent feel on the wheel. So listening to our engineering team, and they also decreased the hex width. And I know all these things seem silly, but people have asked for that for a long time. So that it mounts on there properly and you can play with hex width and different stuff without it rubbing.
Awesome. Alrighty, so that's ProLine and how they helped and contributed to the 22X.
Oh, sorry, one more part.
There's more.
Wait, yes. So, and I'm going to mention this because it's not in the manual anywhere. So this upper design for this tower protector has a rear portion. So these two screws out, and this is essentially what we call a nut on the back, even though it's made out of composite. And then you can put this other nut on the back that's got the mount for an upper wing.
Got it.
Right? So some people prefer a lower wing, some people prefer an upper wing. Like on carpet, I prefer the lower wing, but on the clay tracks, for some reason, I prefer the upper wing. And I think it just has to do honestly with weight up high and it rolling.
Got it.
But that's a new part as well from Proline for us.
Awesome. All right, so now that we talked about the Proline items, talk to me about kind of how Trinity and what parts do they offer for our 22X?
Well, Trinity has been working on some new stuff. They already released their new line of battery packs. So these are some of their newer battery packs. This car is kind of outfitted as modified, and this car is kind of outfitted as spec or stock, we call it today. So you can see here, you got the modified. This is a new G3 Trinity ESC. And then this is an existing motor that they've had for a little while, but it's still very, very good. And then this is their blue fan that's in there. And then this side, the spec side, got their new G3 spec ESC. And then their new latest Gen 2 Roar Legal spec motor. And then the purple fan. I sounds silly. I like purple, but I like the purple fan because it's actually got a connector on it.
Yeah.
So that if anything happens to the fan, I'm not resoldering and soldering to the ESC anymore. I can just disconnect, reconnect the new fan, and screw it right in.
Yep. I noticed that when I was doing a sprint car modification myself. So
yes.
I didn't know. Perfect. So that's Proline. Talk to me about Spectrum. I see a Spectrum 6400 on this and a SR 2100 receiver.
Yeah. So you'll see a new Spectrum servo here. We've had the 6240 and then the 6245 for a little while now. Those are 23 tooth output shafts. And we asked Spectrum to create a 25 tooth output shaft version of the servo, which is what this is, the 6400. There is some strengthening of the gears and some motor updates to it as far as what I've been told. But for us, the primary difference is the kit comes with an aluminum servo horn now, but just a 25 tooth because that's what's prevalent on the market. So we're working on switching over the Spectrum Surface servos to 25 tooth output shaft.
Awesome.
And then this is their Surface antennaless receiver, the 2100. So
where are most guys running their transponders these days, or where do you recommend they run them?
I usually run mine because they're so small nowadays. I run mine right on the back of the receiver here.
Got it. Perfect.
But I mean, weight's important in these things. Something to keep in mind is, I mean, you can move the servo fore and aft in this car with the spacers that are here. I tend to run mine back as far as possible all the way against this and just put a spacer up here. And then you can also put these fore or aft on the ESC mount itself. So you can move that weight around. Obviously, you can move this weight around, and you can move motor weight by changing your spur and pinion ratios and moving that weight around. So something to also always keep in mind when mounting up electronics.
Perfect. Yeah, weight is huge, especially on a car this size, especially in high bike. It's even more critical.
Yep.
So I think that does a really good job at covering kind of the key differences, right? Now, one thing that I'm picking up on is it's a ground-up design. It's way more tunable than any other TLR vehicle we've ever sold. But primarily, I think one thing that I appreciate is just how easy it is to work on and do those tuning adjustments. Is there anything else that you think you want to cover from a usability standpoint, from what's going to make the racers make this better than competition when it comes to the level of parts that they have in their box, to wrenching on it between heats? You know, what are you most excited about?
We had a new designer, Aaron, come in, and a new fresh set of eyes, and just a guy that is remarkable for all intent purposes, because every step along the way, it's like, hey, we'd kind of like to see this. And every time he'd show up with 3 to 7 different versions of what we wanted to see. And it was just like, wow, okay, this is cool. And it really helped a lot of this. Like, this car's so easy to work on. Like, of everything that I could say about this car, it's really pretty darn durable and it's really easy to work on. And that's something. That's a big leap forward for us. I come from, I mean, I had a 22 1.0 all the way to a 5.0, right? And in between, I got 2.5s and 3.7s and whatever else you might call them, right? Because I've had to test all of them, but it's just so easy to work on. Getting the diff in and out, changing a chassis. You literally can just unbolt everything and I'll bolt it right back in. Nothing's flopping all over the place or anything like that. Changing your kicks, no problem. You can do, 5 different versions of caster in it. Out of the kit, just little inserts. Obviously, you can move the hub up and down. We have that variable width or variable axle, so you can change the characteristics there. I mean, there's just things on this that, the axle alone, other people can't do because that's our patent, right? So that's a carryover. That was something we found is a really profound effect to how the car works. You know, changing pills is way easier than it used to be. It's literally just 2 screws off the back, kind of like working on the rear of an 8 scale. I'm an 8 scale guy,
Yeah.
so I came from there. So I was like, no, I just want 2 screws from the back, guys. So 2 screws from the back, the D block comes off, and you can change your pills, move arms forward and aft. We did put a lot more movement in the arm. So now the arm can move forward 2.5 mil, forward and aft. The hub moves forward and aft. I mean, we tried to put as much adjustment in the kit as a kit that we could. And then on top of that, there's just a myriad of option parts
you can buy. Now, you speaking that you're an 8 scale guy, I did a little bit of 8 scale myself, but more importantly, I am a stadium truck guy.
Yep.
Gas truck was more of my thing versus electric truck. So I wanted to show this a little bit. We can't leak too much. As we mentioned at the beginning of this video, this is not going to be available at the launch of the buggy, but please stay tuned not only to horizonhobby.com, but the Team Losi Racing website or social for this drop. But without disclosing too much, talk to me about the truck. What's the most exciting thing, a little Easter egg you might want to drop there for them?
It's low and it's fast. And you're going to get to use a lot of the parts from the buggy on the truck, which makes it nice. The less parts you can carry in your box to support more cars, the better off you are. It's cheaper on your wallet, and it's just simpler.
Awesome. All right, Dunford, well, one, congratulations on your 15 years here. I know there's a lot of years of service, not only just with you, Gil Losi Jr., Frank, myself, everybody here in the team is really pulling through and bringing TLR back to its glory days with a few different twists, a few more modern approaches. But as I like to say, this is only the beginning. You know, we set the stage, what is it now, 14 years ago, roughly, with the 22. And we're getting ready to do it here with the 22X. So thank you guys so much for sticking around for this entire video. We hope you learned a lot. If you have any questions, comments, drop them in the comment below. It'd be myself, Frank, or Dunford himself. They're really active on Facebook. And if you're part of the team, we hope you're excited, just as excited as we are, and we'll hope to see you guys at the track very soon.